not right. This is true, but this is one that every single person will definitely face. No matter how kind you are to everyone around you, no matter how giving you are, no matter how wonderful you could be, you're still going to run into what? Conflict. Conflict, conflict, conflict. It is a regrettable component of every single person's life. Because when you think about it, it can be caused by personality differences, various diverse perspectives. I mean, goodness, you take a survey in a room of 10 random adults, and you're going to come up with probably 11 different views on any one particular topic, because someone will change their mind and it still won't match with anyone else. But then you have your individual desires that sometimes counter other people's desires, even in your own home. Sometimes you want to do one thing, someone else wants to do something else, and there might be conflict arise out of that. Here's a fun one. What do you want to eat? That has caused many conflicts around the world. Amen. But many different factors eventually places at odds, at some varying degrees, with other people. But when those times come, the real question is, how are we going to respond? How are we going to act? Because I remember some times where conflict arose, even though I was in the right on X, Y, or Z. The situation doesn't exactly matter. All that matters was I was right. However, how I responded to it was very wrong. And that just kind of negated the whole rightness that I had in the first place. So it's how we respond that truly actually matters. Because we can have a couple of different options. We could allow our pride and opinions to extend the conflict. Because how many has ever been in that spot? No, bless God, I'm right, and I'm going to keep this on. No, just me. Okay, I know I've done it this week. How many's ever sent a passive-aggressive email or something because just trying to just push the envelope just a little bit further, say, trying to agree, but letting them know they're still wrong? No? Okay, well, I've done that. I let Copilot take care of all my emails these days. That way I can't be accused of being the one that's, nope, that's Copilot. I'll let it take all emotion out of it. Sorry. It helps say, professionally say this, and it'll shine it up real nice. It's really cool. I like that feature. It's a really expensive feature, though. But it tries to help negate conflict. So we can either keep pushing the envelope, saying, no, I'm right, and here's how you're wrong. Or we can cloak ourselves in humility and say, you know what? Let's try to find a peaceful resolution. Yeah. We're all currently seeking how to find out the right way to use AI in our particular sphere of business. And oh boy, there's a lot of arguments around, should it be used at all? Which one's the right way to use it if we do go that way? And it's like, oh, goody. Try to use it to try to help resolve conflicts, and all it does is cause even more conflicts. So sometimes you got to find the right way, right? Even if it's as simple as something like picking a software, conflict's going to pop up randomly. And people can take offense over the strangest things. Somebody missed a meeting where paint color was discussed and something got painted, and well, I'm offended that I wasn't consulted. Well, you would have if you were there, but or whatever else kind of situations. Things like that happen all the time. But as children of God, The paths that we walk are going to constantly lead us to into conflict, but it's up to us to use the proper reactions to make sure we ensure our proper destination, right? It's certainly true from an eternal perspective that what we do here is going to affect there, right? What we do in any conversation is going to affect something else down the road. I forget what it was, whether it was a book or maybe an old TV show or something, but it was a quote about relationships. I think it was either a poem or someone was talking about a poem. But that it's not a relationship isn't the most recent conversation you've had. It's every conversation that led up to that point, because it establishes a pattern of who that person is, who you are, and it establishes how that direction's going to go. And if there's outside of the blood of Jesus taking care of situations, if there's certain patterns, the best course is to separate from that situation, right? You got to take care of the right things, because you can see that you can get into a very secular motion and situation where argue, explode, maybe even explode some more, and then run off to be quiet somewhere, and then come back, be peaceful, try to make up. I've seen it on the jobs. I've seen it in other people's relationships, their romantic relationships. It becomes an opportunity to either create a toxic environment or toxic situation, or to be freed from a toxic environment or toxic situation. You have to decide what habit and pattern you're going to establish. Our day-to-day life should be governed by the consistent evaluation of whether our words are being used in an appropriate manner. Are we reflecting who we claim to be, right? When we say we're a child of God, even when we're angry, are we showing that we're a child of God? Because there is a biblical way to be angry. Be angry and sin not. That's a rough one. It's a hard one. I'll admit it. I am a hothead, so I understand that there is a real frustration with that. I've put too many holes in the wall trying to avoid a fight or avoid mouthing off and hurting the wall or hurting my hand in the process, to know, hey, maybe there's got to be a more healthy way to take care of this situation, right? And it's all about not just how are we being perceived, but how is the God that we serve being perceived in the process. A lot of times we're more worried about how we're being perceived and kind of forgetting that it's about his perception in the process. How are we reflecting his glory? How are we reflecting who he is? In other words, our decisions, our priorities, and our attitude and spirit, are they advancing us towards being the mark of being like Jesus, or are they showing that we are missing that mark? Right? We've got to make sure we're doing our part, very much so. And accordingly, we're given scriptures concerning the different types of goals that we should pursue, and how we should live to achieve those goals, and how to do that. But we have a common theme, a thread throughout the following verses that we're going to go through. The first and foremost one, because today is going to be all about trying to make peace. And this is the one that I've always thought of whenever I hear someone say, let's make peace, is Hebrews chapter 12, verse 14. Who wants to get that one? 12:14. Yep. Right. A lot of people want to harp on that second part, but they skip over that first part. It's just as important. If you have holiness but you have no peace, you've got no holiness. You've got a dress code, right? If you don't have peace, if you're not a peaceable person, you have a wardrobe versus having holiness there. So we have to have both if we truly expect to see the Lord. Who else wants to read? I got a couple more here. We'll go back to back. 2 Timothy 2:22. A few twos in that there. 2 Timothy 2:2. And also Romans 14:19 will be the next one after that. All right. And Romans 14:19. All right, in each of these verses, excuse me, it states where that peace is one of the prized commodities of life, whether it be our natural life or our spiritual life, our walk with God, our walk with other people. It involves being peaceable, right? It's not just about finding a cabin somewhere out in the woods or building a cabin out somewhere in the woods and say, this is peaceful, I'm going to stay here by myself. That's not the right approach. It's about we have to get closer to God and in the process get others closer to Him. And how are we doing that if we're not peaceable, right? We have to make sure we have peace. It's a very enduring quality. And what we're doing should lead us closer to peace internally and externally, right? Sometimes, have you ever done something that you knew you probably shouldn't have, and even though it didn't cause conflict between people, you still had the conflict on the inside, like, man, I shouldn't have done that. All right. Well, fully transparent, I've done that quite often. I'm a dummy. It takes me a long time. I have very thick head, apparently, and sometimes it'll either be, man, I shouldn't have made that snide comment. Actually, quite often it's that, let's be honest. That's why I use Copilot in my email, so it doesn't seem like I'm trying to be snide. I do not mean to be snide in my emails. I try to be peaceable because we got to have that pure heart, right? We have to have that peace and charity and love about us. It's not enough to show up for church and be peaceable just here. We have to be peaceable on our job, in the grocery, at the gas station. Here's a hard one, on the expressway. People try to be crazy all over the place, but let them be crazy, let you be the sane one, right? And that means a whole slew of things of what it means to be sane and peaceable right there, right? We should not follow a way that doesn't allow our words to produce peace. Because if our words are producing anything but peace, we're not really reflecting what we should be at that time, right? If our attitude is not generating peace, then our attitude is robbing us of a potential blessing. Sometimes the biggest robber of an attitude isn't the other person. Sometimes it's us, right? It's our reaction to it. Again, my mind goes back to 2 or 3 different incidences throughout the years where I was completely in the right. This case, someone lied on me. This case, someone misheard what someone else was saying and they attributed it to me. And in this case, there was another situation. It was perception was wrong on the other person's end as well. And so I was in the right, I was in the clear, but yet my attitude surely doth stinketh, right? About the whole situation, about how I was trying to prove things. Because again, being the hothead, especially much more of a hothead when I was younger, I was very loud about, I know I'm going to be right. I'm right. I'm going to prove that I'm right. Well, maybe if I'd learned the one thing, keep the peace and let the Lord fight your battle, that'd be a great thing. It just took a lot longer than it should have for me to learn that lesson, right? But we have to learn to follow after what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, I think it's verse 9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called what? The children of God, right? If we want to be children of God, we should be peacemakers. But a lot of times we hold it to be the other person they got to do their part. Yes, they do, but we have to do ours as well. A lot of times we want the other person to always be the one to make the first step. We want the others that are involved be the ones that they have to do this. Why do I have to keep giving in every time? And why do I have to always be the one to show mercy and grace and compassion in the situation? Well, maybe that's because you're the better Christian in the situation. Maybe that's why God is asking you to keep moving forward, keep extending the grace and being the bigger person in the situation. But we have to learn to be peacemakers. We're not merely encouraged to love peace and to enjoy peace, but instead we're to make peace if all possible. But how does one do that when conflict comes his or her way? Well, good thing we've asked. I'm going to give a few different tips to take care of that, to try to help resolve that. Number one is a real hard one. Listen. How many have ever been in a conversation when you know for a fact the other person is only listening to respond? They're not listening to hear, they're listening to respond. When you're in that situation, is anyone going to come out ahead on that? Yeah, yep. The famed author Ernest Hemingway once said it this way: when people talk, listen completely, because most people never listen. See, when we engage in conflict with another person, we're often too busy trying to formulate our response or how we're going to frame things or how what our spin might end up being. Because I've heard some liars spin some great tales, and I was just so enthralled in the situation trying to figure out how I was going to get the frame of truth back up, realizing it's not my job to take care of the truth, it's God's job. That's a very important reminder. But I was listening so that maybe instead of interrupting them and stopping them in the middle of the lie, let them have the rope to hang themselves, right? Because eventually, be sure your sins will find you out. Amen. It may not be as quick as we like, but they will get caught in their situations. If it's not now, it will be in eternity. Sad to say, for some that will be the situation. But in our desire to prove that we're right, if it overcomes our need to listen, then we're going to make a bigger mess of things. Because some people calm down after they've been heard. They might talk themselves out of the situation after they've vented out. And they realize, oh, I'm the one being stupid here. Or I'm the one that's being in the wrong here. Maybe, I didn't see that perspective. Sometimes we just need to learn to listen to others. And one thing we could see is Solomon said, or decried the lack of wisdom in such approach, because we need to be able to listen to someone else. Otherwise, we'll end up like Proverbs 18:13. Who wants to get that? Yes, sir. So make sure you hear the whole situation before you respond. Because how many times have you stopped somebody in the middle of a sentence and then you responded to what you assumed, and then you ended up being wrong about what they were trying to say in the first place? That's why it's so important to listen. Listen. Because it's hard sometimes, though, to let our ego be at check. All right? Sometimes it's hard to keep that at bay, and we're like, no, I got to respond. Maybe we need to learn to let that go, right? The actor Alan Alda, formerly of MASH fame, once said, listening is being able to be changed by the other person. Again, sometimes I am the one in wrong, and maybe I just need to hear the other person out, right? So if I hear what they have to say, instead of just trying to respond to what they have to say, I'll be able to lower the temperature of the conversation a bit, and then we'll be able to find some common ground and be able to move forward in a peaceable way. Because when the other person feels that we are sincerely hearing his or her side, it definitely changes the tone of things. I remember sitting at Walmart waiting for Roxy to get off work for quite a long time when she was down there. I would hear the stories that people would bark and yell and scream at the poor customer service person there who was just doing their job and saying sorry, but no because of this or no because of that. And then inevitably they'd bark and yell louder for someone else to come over so they get the next person up. And my goodness, that person is just trying to do their job too, and they're doing the right thing. They're following all the policies, and sometimes they do give a little because they hear what the person had to say that they failed to mention to the first person. And okay, well, in this case, then yes, we will be able to take care of that. Or in other cases, they say something that they didn't say in front of the other person that they definitely shouldn't have said. It made their case worse, and then they stand firm and they say no, and then they get someone else up higher that just does not care, and they're like, all right, well, I'll give you everything. They feel like they're being heard at that point. They feel like they're being heard because they get their return and they get a $50 gift card on top of that for their inconvenience of being told no. So much entitled nonsense that I saw in the process. But a lot of times, though, I shouldn't say a lot of times, on occasion, some people did calm down just after their story got explained. They didn't get what they wanted, but they did calm down. So it just changes the temperature of the conversation when you allow someone to speak their piece, right? This alone brings us much closer to a righteous resolution by just changing the temperature of the room. Because how many knows that, or how many's ever been in a room where somebody said something and you could just cut the tension with a knife, right? You could take the dullest butter knife on the planet and just get some sharp cuts out of that, right? Because of how thick the atmosphere is. Well, just letting somebody speak their mind and let them recognize that they're being heard can sometimes change the nature of that, and there's a very big blessing in that. And it's very ironic that the first commandment involves from the Shema, hear, O Israel, that part here. You've got to listen, you've got to obey, you got to pay attention. It's not just to receive it in your ear, but you got to do something about it, right? So when we listen, don't listen to just let them flap their gums until they're done and just ignore what they're actually saying, but actually pay attention and listen, and then respond caringly and with the proper attitude from that. And then that helps go a long way. So that's the first step, is listening. Number two, this is one that is hard for some people, especially in the customer service field, apparently. Demonstrate empathy, right? I've heard a lot of people say the words of empathy, but I don't think they understand what empathy is. It's more than just saying the right thing, right? It's about how you're acting in the process. Because once we hear both arguments and the emotion of the other person, we kind of got to stop and consider how they may have been impacted by our actions or our inactions, or maybe how they were impacted by what they thought they heard or what they thought was going on. Because again, they could be wrong, but their feelings are still very much justified on because of what they thought they heard. There's a lot of hurt feelings happen because of mishearings, right? So we can't just say, well, it's not my fault they didn't hear it right. Well, no, but you can still have common courtesy to give the empathy of, well, let's try to explain it a little better, right? But rather than focusing on how we may have been hurt, which how many, I'll be honest, I kind of like to focus on that, especially when I'm extra carnal. I want to focus on me. Well, that made me feel bad. That made me this. That made me that. But what about me's? Well, it's not always about us, right? It's how are we reflecting Christ? If we're being selfish about me, am I reflecting him, right? No, so we have to realize it's not just about how we've been hurt, but making peace means that we've got to be honest about how maybe we've hurt the other person in the process. So instead of spotlighting wounds that they've made and that we've received, peacemaking sometimes means acknowledging the wounds that we've inflicted. Because how many has been in a situation where you've been hurt, there's no arguing of that, and in the process, instead of trying to make peace, we try to inflict the pain right back by highlighting what they've done and focusing on, well, you did this and you did that and you. That doesn't make the peace either, right? We generally don't like doing that because it means we have to step up and admit that we may have caused a problem. We have to take, because it's a lot easier to just try to justify our own actions. That's carnal human nature, and it happens all the time. Because think about how many times have we heard, well, I probably shouldn't have said that, but, well, anything after that kind of just is negated right there. You were right in the first place. You probably shouldn't have said that. While there might be plenty of justifications or plenty of accurate statements to follow after that, the but kind of isn't necessary there. We probably shouldn't have said it. Or how about, it would have been better to have not done that, but they did this, or but they did that, right? Or if you only knew what they did to me, or but you don't know what they said first. Mm-hmm. Now, doesn't that kind of remind you, though, of grade school? Well, he hit me first. She hit me first. That happened first. Or they flung this. They took my paper. They did this. They tripped me. They did this dirty thing. They did that nasty thing. Are we children? Or are we children of God? Right? There is a maturity difference in that process. Each of these statements kind of reveal the fact of where we're focusing on, the wrongs against us or how we've suffered, rather than being contrite in the wrong things that we may have committed. Showing empathy truly only can work if we can actually listen first, so we can see how we may have affected the other person and then respond according to that. Sometimes it's so difficult to show empathy if you don't listen first, because you don't know how you're supposed to respond. Sometimes we go seeking a resolution or seeking an answer, a fix, without actually seeking the root cause of the problem. What could I have done better? What did I do wrong? Not, what's your problem this time, right? It's a matter of how we address it and how we approach it. And the third one here is a word that we don't normally like to use around here, compromise. Because we're not talking about compromising doctrine. We're not compromising anything like that of lifestyle patterns or anything like that. What we definitely mean in this case is, because in those contexts, in doctrine or in lifestyle, that's to be eschewed no matter what, right? That is completely, forget compromise in those areas. Done. Nip that in the bud right off the bat. But the compromise comes for making peace is, let's find that common ground and say, you know what, I may never agree to, I can see your side. I don't agree with it, but I still can see it. We're not going to agree 100%, but in the spirit of peace, let's just agree to disagree. No, normally, not on doctrine, not on things like that, but there's some things that we can learn to compromise on. One good compromise is, hey, at family gatherings, don't talk politics. That's a good compromise. That's a great compromise. Because even if you agree with those around you, guaranteed someone's going to say something to make everybody around uncomfortable. because they're going to take whatever it is way too far. There's always one of the bunch. Even if you agree with 99% of the things. There's a fellow I work with that I think he seeks that one thing that he can take it too far with. He definitely did that today and almost wound in HR because didn't read the room, didn't read the temperature, didn't learn about that, didn't say, you know what, maybe we should tamper this down a little bit. But we have to make sure we can find a way to compromise. Like a good example, if arguing about food, you hate X, they hate Y, you can't come to common ground. Find something that you kind of both dislike or don't super enjoy. Hey, that's the compromise for today. If we're not gonna find the common ground, let's find the one thing over here that neither one of us wins, right? That way you can't hold it over the other one. As just a goofy little example I could come up with off the top there, not because I've ever been there, because we always know exactly where to go to eat, right? Mexican, right? That's the answer, right? Or is it Indian today? I'm digging in the hole, right? I'm digging. That's not a deposit, that's a withdrawal. So let's learn that compromise real quick. But we make sure we got to do the right thing. Because the truth is, almost every time, somewhere between our opinion, their opinion will be the fact, right? Our biases, our hurts, our life experiences, all of that will skew our perceptions. Two people can look at the exact same thing or hear the exact same sentence and hear something totally different or see something totally different because something has skewed their something from the past. Their biases, their hurts, their life experiences. Any of those things has colored what that phrase could mean for them or what that event could mean for them. So they're both seeing the same thing, they're both hearing the same thing, but they're not taking away the same thing. They took totally different ends of things. So it's not very easy to find that middle ground right off the bat unless we learn to listen, unless we learn to empathize, unless we learn to compromise. Because similarly, another person's position will rarely be entirely right or because they're vulnerable to the same things that you are, right? Your past, your life experiences that no one else has, your own biases, based on scripture, based off of experiences, all that. Yours are unique to you. Someone else is going to have different things. So it's kind of hard to come to those places sometimes unless we learn to find that middle ground somewhere down the middle. But Jesus commands us to agree sometimes. So I'm going to grab Matthew 5:25. Yep. This admonishment referred particularly to one who is headed into a court battle. Jesus said that it's better to compromise and find a solution before the formal processes were engaged. This process of finding a workable solution is always preferred. If compromising with an adversary makes peace, then we've probably pleased God in the process, right? Proverbs 16:7 says, "When a man's way pleases the Lord, he maketh even his enemies be at peace with him." Now, this verse does not necessarily mean that if we please God, then he'll miraculously make everybody love us, right? That's definitely not going to be the case. And he doesn't miraculously change our enemies, although I'm not saying he can't. It's not saying a guaranteed, right? It's not a if then this type of situation. It's not a programming thing, but it does teach us instead that through proper efforts to heal wounded relationships, they do please God so much that He will help us complete that effort. Right? He's going to help make a way. Job's captivity was turned when he prayed for his friends. The ones that were supposed to be there to comfort him, he prayed for their comfort, and then God took care of his situation, right? When conflict comes, we cannot completely avoid it. It's a sad situation of the facts. I'd love to avoid confrontation. I hate confrontation. I have one coworker who openly admits that he thrives on confrontation, and it shows. The drama that has stirred up since he's been there is so unbelievable. But where some seek to avoid and some seek to cause, there has to be a meeting somewhere in between, right? We have to find our way because we can't avoid it. If we try to avoid it, they can go around the other way and try to make things worse. Had a situation recently where someone came to me, had a conversation. What was explained and discussed was not received correctly, and then they didn't get exactly what they wanted, exactly when they wanted. So like a little child, they had admitted they got upset, and they went around everyone in the decision-making process, went to someone higher up. They knew the right words to say to get their way. They got their way, and they should have been scolded later on, but because various circumstances, it wasn't quite exactly that way. But they admitted multiple times, though, I did it the wrong way, but I got what I wanted. There's going to be confrontation. Even if you do everything right, some others may not always do it right. So we have to learn to maintain our righteous posture in the process. We cannot get the wrong attitude in the fact of being right. I could have caused a big stink at work. Well, I just gave away exactly where that was at over that situation, but I didn't, because what would that profit me in the long run? What would it profit the kingdom, right? We have to learn to maintain that righteous posture. Yes, somebody lied about me. They lied about what I said. They lied about what they said. They lied about everything else. Good thing there was other people around that they were the ones to go and say, that's not right. I didn't have to fight for it. The Lord used others to fight my battle for me. See, that's why it's so important to maintain our own posture, because our own righteous posture, having his what he would have us do in the process, so much more so because in those seasons he's able to use others to bless and to for him to not get a bad name. Because how many knows if we go headstrong into doing what we want in that particular situation or circumstance, we're not likely to bring glory to him. We're probably going to ruin a witness or two along the way. And someone say, "Oh, I thought you were a Christian. I thought you did this. I thought that." And I kind of didn't show that day. And sometimes it could take a long time to recover that witness again, if it's even possible. So we must maintain our righteous posture so that, and remember the words from the book of James, in James 3:18, where he said, "And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace." I don't know about you, but I want to make peace. Because I enjoy peace. I love me some peace. But if I'm going to have peace on the inside, I got to make sure that I'm not causing strife or variance or envy on the outside, right? I can't be causing drama and having peace on the inside, knowing that I've caused a problem intentionally, or I've gone out of my way to blast someone just because they blasted me, right? We need to be peacemakers. If we as a child of God wanted to enjoy a righteous harvest of spiritual fruit, we must sow seeds of peace. If anyone who's ever planted a garden can tell you that is work. I remember last year, and looking forward to this upcoming year as well of the front yard garden. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of sweat equity. But when you put in the work, you get to be able to reap the results. If you really want peace and want the results of peace, put in the work. And it'll be a whole lot more enjoyable than anything else. I guarantee it. So today, a question or two here that we could ask ourselves is, what is a good trait of an active listener to be able to listen properly? There we go. There we go. That's a good one right off the bat there. But why is listening so important in resolving a conflict? Exactly. Very good. Very good. How skilled are you at finding compromise when disagreements arise? Not very. I'm working on it. Mhm. Yes. Indeed, indeed. I heard someone say today that they saw a meme of, I think was it Keanu Reeves or something, where he's being interviewed, and he's like, I'm at this point of life where I just refuse to argue. It takes the steam out of any conflict that I've run into. Someone tried to get an argument with me saying 1 + 1 is 5. I just smiled and agreed with them, like, you know what, you're right. And it just seems to see how much the steam just got let out of people when he just agrees with them all the time. Because you want to be frustrated slightly, but how can you be truly mad at someone that's agreeing with you? Right? Like, oh, no, you're right. You're right. Oh. I've seen so many people trying to argue in customer service situations, and just them being agreed with made them like, what? What do you mean I'm right? I just wanted to come to argue. It's agreeing with that. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Hopefully they realize that they're angry at themselves instead. Some people don't get it. They're like, what? You don't think I'm worth the response? No. But yeah. Now this is one not to say out loud, but think of a recent conflict in which you were involved. What do you think, or what do you need to do to promote peace in that situation? That's for you to think about and dwell upon for on your way home today and to think about. But just think about these type of things that say, you know what, I've been in a situation and this is what I could have done a whole lot better. So that next time that kind of situation arises, guess what? I'm going to do it better, right? I want to do my part. Yeah, go ahead. Up, you said what? You said but. Uh-oh. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. One thing my son used to listen to on Daniel Tiger, Neighborhood. If you feel so mad that you're gonna roar, take a deep breath and count to four, or in some cases 400. Yeah, so take that time think before you speak. Let cooler heads prevail. Never respond in the heat of a moment type situation. Yep, all definitely good. Any questions for me? I've asked questions. Your turn. No. No, I don't. Mhm. Or vice versa.
So I look at it from the attitude, this has really helped me a lot in the, especially with dealing with conflict, because, many times you just feel like something's right at the beginning. You gotta be okay with finishing second. Learn how to finish second. It's okay. Finish the second still, so bad.
Be okay with not having the last word.